The flux mindset is this concept of the ability to see all change, whether you perceive it as good or bad, but see all change consistently as an opportunity, not a threat. And to recognize that rather than reacting to change and sort of one thing changes, you respond to it, then another thing changes, and you're constantly in like fight or flight mode, that what we're trying to do with the flux mindset is to reshape our relationship to change from the inside out. So really getting clear on what grounds you and orients you, and as I mentioned, like makes you you, even when everything else changes. And so the 8 flux superpowers, just to go through them quite briefly, and with the caveat that many of them at first glance, they sound really contrarian. But then when we have a conversation about them, and this is what I love, people are like, oh my gosh, you've just described what I'm struggling with. You've just described my life. So the first superpower is what I call run slower. And that means that in a world with an ever faster pace of change, we need to learn how to slow our own pace in order to thrive. The second superpower is called see what's invisible, which is when change hits, rather than focusing on what's straight in front of us, like we've all been taught to just focus on what's straight ahead, we actually need to pay much more attention to what's blurry, what's on the edges, what might seem invisible, and what is invisible until you learn to see it. And we'll come back to this one because it is one of my favorites. The third superpower is get lost. And that is that in a world of constant change where getting lost is actually seen often as a sign of failure, you've somehow screwed up, the ability to get lost and embrace getting lost and get excited about getting lost, meaning having no idea where you are or what you're supposed to do next, that is actually a superpower in itself. The fourth superpower is called start with trust. And that is where, when trust seems broken, we need to assume good intent of other people. And there's a whole other book that could be written just on trust. But this is kind of, I would say that superpower number 4 is sort of, in many ways, the meta superpower, in that so many other things come back to trust. And as many people, I'm sure, here today know, we are in the midst of a trust crisis in terms of levels of trust in organizations in particular, but also with one another. And my sense is that trust is what's going to get us forward. If we continue with a culture and a design of mistrust of the average individual, we are going to be in an ever bigger world of hurt. But what's interesting in terms of flux is that when change hits, then you start to realize just how much trust matters. And I like to challenge people by asking, when change hits, to whom and to what did you turn? Chances are you turn to your trusted relationships. And if you didn't have many of them, you struggled a lot more than people who did. So that's superpower 4. Superpower number 5 is what I call to know you're enough. And what that means is that in a world in which we're living like today, where we are so hardwired for more, you want to earn more, be more, do more, have more, that actually is very unhelpful when it comes to change, as well as sustainability of our planet and ourselves. But that in a world in which society says it's all about ever more, we need to actually know our enough. And I'm going to come back to this one too. I'm letting a little bit out. It's one of my favorites. So that's number 5. Number 6 is one that's a little bit unique within the 8, because it is very much geared towards your professional journey and your career and the future of work. And this superpower is called, so the superpower itself is to create your portfolio career. And what I mean by that is, in a future of work that is full of constant change, the successful career looks less like a path and more like a portfolio. So the difference between pursuing a linear, singular career path, which is out of reach and impractical for more and more people, we can talk about this if you'd like, the way that you get beyond that and the way that you protect yourself against the forces of automation, the way that you become more professionally resilient, is to think about your career as a portfolio that you curate. And there are steps that you go through for that. And then the seventh Flux Superpower is to be all the more human. And that kind of links to the one I just shared. The punchline, if you will, of this superpower is that in a world with more robots, our key to success and to thriving is to actually be all the more human. And this gets into really the fundamentals of our interdependence as humanity and the fact that technology is but a means. It is not an end in and of itself. And the final Flux superpower is what I call letting go of the future. And this is the one that I think a lot of people go, don't tell me to do that. I can't letting go is failure. Letting go is scary. To be clear, when I say that we need to learn how to let go of the future, not just the past or the present, what I mean is that we are so hell-bent on predicting and controlling how the future is going to play out that we get stuck in our own minds, unable to envision different futures that could actually be better. And so the punchline of this, it's the opposite of failure. It's the opposite of surrendering. What we're talking about is letting go of the future in order to create the space and breathe oxygen into a better future to emerge.